Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Qdabra's weekly webinar, and today we're talking about forms that allow for same-time feedback or parallel approval or parallel commenting, any of those options. I've got a couple quick polls. First, I want to thank everyone for joining. I see a lot of familiar faces and a few blasts from the past. Great to have you here, Catherine. I'm going to just do this quick poll here. I do have a couple co-presenters with me. I'd like to introduce Mel Clemente, who's joining us from Manila. She's the one who did all the good work behind these forms today. Thank you, Mel, for being here, and more importantly, thank you for getting these wonderful forms ready for the webinar. And I also have Don Lambatten here from Manila, and he will be joining us to help with the demo because we need multiple approvers. So indulge me for a second and just answer a couple quick questions here regarding your forms today, your solutions. Do you have problems with multiple people filling out forms at the same time? We've done actual webinars on locking before, and that was, I think it was last year. It was actually in February of this year. We did one on locking. So you can do locking, but the problem with locking is you only have one person with the baton running at one time. And what we're really talking about today is, running in parallel. So you have two people filling out the same form or something like that. We'll talk about the tricks in a minute. Thank you for your feedback. It looks like we have about 50% of you saying you haven't tested. Okay, and then about 25% are saying yes, and about half no and half not sure. So thanks for participating in that poll. I'm going to do one more quick question for you here, and that is, do you have scenarios like this where you have a policy and you want to be able to send it out to a number of people for simultaneous approval, right? And if you don't, we're going to give you one today. We're going to give you that form, and we'll show you how it works, and we'll be available to help you install it. It doesn't take much time. So it looks like most of you are saying yes here, 70% or so. Thank you for that. So I'm going to close the polls and return to my presentation. Today's agenda, we're talking about filling out a form or commenting on it or approving it at the same time. That's what we call same-time feedback or same-time voting. So this is used for things like parallel workflows, commenting, like I just mentioned. And the way we're going to do it, and I'll talk about this several times, but we're going to use a child form. So we're going to have a main form and a child form. We're going to do a demo in a second, but I just want to kind of walk through the agenda first. We're not going to require any check-ins or checkouts. The checkout feature in SharePoint's a bit of a bother. We don't want to have to force people to remember to do that. We are going to show you how to set expiration options, which is actually kind of cool because it is difficult to get expiration working in SharePoint. So another approach is to have this approval form check whether it's expired when they open it up, and just to specify or tell them that either we've hit the minimum number of votes required, i.e. a quorum, we have a quorum, we don't need your vote, or the date has passed and you snooze, you lose, right? So, and then the third thing we're going to show is how to do this with emails so that you can do a one-click approval from your mobile phone. In fact, this form today will submit and send emails via workflow in SharePoint, and that workflow will send to each recipient for the policy approval. Those links will open up without having to log in, and that's a pretty cool technique that we're highlighting today. And then finally, these links are actually created in a way that prevents massive voter fraud, right? So we're trying to prevent people from spoofing other people and from voting twice, right? Okay, so that's it for today's agenda. Any questions, please do let us know. We have a chat session here and you can chat us. Here's a graphical representation, and Mel, since you're here and you created this wonderful graphic, do you want to tell people what's going to happen?
Sure, I'd love to. Can you hear me okay?
No, you're not coming through my my headset correctly here. I think I need to change. Maybe other people can hear, and if that's the case, that's great. Go ahead and say it again there, Mel.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
we're gonna.
better.
Is this better?
Yep. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a quick diagram that I've put up to show you what the um, value proposition for today's webinar is. So on the left here, you'll see an admin. Um, she's supposed to be in the admin role, and she submits the policy for approval form, is what we call it, submits it to a form library. That's the first form library into Office 365. And then when she filled out that form, she selected a set of users. We could call them voters or approvers. And there's that those lists. That list of approvers gets submitted to a list in Office 365, which then triggers a workflow designed in SharePoint Designer workflow that sends email notifications to those selected users, right? So that's what you're seeing here to the right. So these users can then open the form from a laptop or a desktop, from a mobile phone or an iPad when they're out and about. They can also open that form. So you could also call them the external users. And so they vote, they either click approve or reject, and the forms get sent out to via Forms Viewer to Form Library B, which is also in Office 365. It's the second form library where the approvals are stored. And so the admin will be able to manage and see how many approved, how many rejected. Yes,
That's great. Thank you very much. We do have, it looks like, okay, Donald has saying that there is audio. That's great. I'm glad we have audio. Okay, so let's just do this real quick. And we have to come up with I'm just going to go to my policy for approval library here. You can see we've got some test examples out there. I'll show the form in the designer in a minute. We do need some form of a policy. So if people have like a policy that they want to give us, it's fun. I don't want any kind of corporate leave request policy. Yeah, sure, leave request policies are important and everything, but we need something fun for this demo of the day. And I was going to think of something like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, this is a little more business oriented. So if you have an idea, throw it in chat real quick, and I'll use your idea. But I was going to say form. So what Qdabra, one thing we focus on with our customers is what we call continuous improvement, this Japanese concept of Kaizen. And so we're going to call this the continuous improvement policy. And what we're going to say is that every 2 weeks, resources must engage customers to make sure their processes are improving, and if not, do something useful. Okay, so that's our new policy for our customers and for our employees and our resources here. And we're going to send this to a couple different people here for approval. Ideally, you'd want to send it to your whole team. So that we have this people picker in Forms here. It looks a little bit different than what you're used to, but what you just do here is you just type in, this is in a form obviously, we just type in my name and you can select it, and then we can just do the same thing with Mel, and we'll put her in here. Obviously it would help if I added the users first before I switch to the other user. Do me again here. And last but not least, we'll add Dawn to the mix. Dawn's with us today. Dawn, can you hear me okay?
Hey, Patrick. Yep.
Hey, Dawn. Good evening there in Manila. Okay, so we've got the three of you in the approver slot. And we can set an expiration here. We can say, well, this policy can be voted on for 1 day, and it expires tomorrow. And we only need 2 people to approve it to say it's good. You know, ideally, you'd probably want more people, but just for this purpose of this demo, I'm going to submit my new policy. And this is, of course, submitting. Now, this form is pretty plain Jane. Let's take a look at it in the designer. And oops, that's the wrong view. I'll show you that in a minute. That's the other one. So here's the form in the InfoPath designer. And you can see we've got the people picker there. We've got the expiration date, quorum, and this pretty simple form, right, except for a few things. So one thing that's interesting is if we look at the rules on this form, and this is really where the action takes place, we're actually submitting the form and we're mapping all of those users to a separate SharePoint list. And we're using the QRules command to submit the SharePoint list to do that. I think I need to run my handy dandy Zoom It tool to show you this up close. Sorry I didn't do that before the webinar. But it's easy to run, so we'll do that. And now I should be able to zoom. So we're actually using the submit to SharePoint list command, which is probably the most popular QRules command out there today. It allows you to map a repeating section to a child list or any number of child lists. It can be arbitrarily deep, parent, child, grandchild, great-grandchild, that kind of a thing. This command is specified in the data connections. It specifies a data connection here that maps to a list in SharePoint. If we want to look at that list and understand the mapping, we can look at the mapping file. So you have to add a mapping file to get that mapping to work. And in fact, I have that open here. We have another tool that allows you to edit the mapping file. So here's the mapping file for this. I just basically what I did was I loaded it, I exported it from my resource file. So I went into the designer and I went to resource files and I exported it like that, hit export, and then I came back into the this tool here and I clicked import existing QRules mapping, and this shows me the mapping. So this is the list that we're going to policy approvers. So let's take a look at that list real quick because that's where I think I have it open on top here. Do I have it open on top? Well, if not, I can get there. So this is, yeah, this is not the one. So let's go to site contents and go to the policy approvers list. And this is our demo site, but the list is right here. And you can see that we just submitted 3 people to this list. And you can see those at the top here. And one thing that's really interesting about this, come on, SharePoint, you can do it. Okay, SharePoint is rendering, yay. Okay, so these 3 people just got submitted moments ago, and you can see that there's a policy ID is all the same. So it's all the same date timestamp, that's 2017-05-11-08-15, that's 8:15 p.m., 8:15 a.m. Pacific, 6 seconds past the minute. And they all have different, what we call unique IDs. And for those of you familiar with development, unique IDs are called GUIDs, globally unique IDs. That means that these numbers are supposedly unique for this year, for next year. They're globally unique. So they're unique across all SharePoint sites. I don't know how true that is, but that's the idea. So these IDs, though, we're generating a separate one for each of the approvers. We're going to talk more about that in a second, but just keep that in mind. So these are obviously all hooked up correctly to the SharePoint list, and thanks, Mel, for doing that. This list is being populated, like I said, using this mapping. So the policy approvers is the list, and then, of course, we use the list ID in the form, and we have this repeating section here called approver name. If I go back to my form, that's the approval form. Here's the policy form. If I go back into approvers, you can see that this is repeating. So this PC person is our people picker, and this is the thing that we are actually is that right, Mel?
Yeah, we have another repeating table underneath the people picker fields because yeah, we're submitting a different format too.
Right. So you're using this because of the namespace issue with people
That's
pickers.
right.
Is that right? So
Yeah.
for those of you, this is kind of an advanced topic, but Microsoft InfoPath puts this PC namespace on person, and it makes it more difficult to map the data underneath it. So Mel has created this essentially a mirror repeating section down here with the information that she's going to map. So that's pretty cool. And then she's keeping track of it with these attributes down below here. And those get filled in when she submits it, actually before she submits it. So that's the process for the submit. It's mapping it to that list. And then we have a workflow on this list. So let's take a look at the workflow. I've got my SharePoint Designer all open and ready to show you here on a different screen. If you got questions, please feel free to chat us. We are about halfway through the demo here. So this is a workflow for the policy approval, and you can see it's very simple. It runs, if we go back to the workflow settings, you can see that it is set up for that policy approvers list, and it is running when an item is added. If we edit the workflow, you can see how simple it really is. It's just sending us this email. Now the email actually has these two links in it, and this is where some of the secret sauce lies, so to speak. If we look at one of these links, you can see here that, let's see if I can find this here. You can see that this is a link to open the form in Forms Viewer. This is a provider-hosted app, just like Microsoft Flow. And you've got then the link to the library. Demos is the site. And where's the library information? Here it is. It's SharePoint Demos, Forms Viewer, template name equals policy approval. And then app only equals true. That means open it externally and put in the policy ID for the policy that they're approving, and put in the approver GUID, that's the global unique ID, with the current item from that approver's list, and then add the status approved and submit. So this is going to allow for that one-click approval. If they click on the approve button, they get to approve the form without any other action. If they click on approve with comment, we're going to open it, and we're not going to approve it on open. We're going to give them the ability. We'll approve it, but we'll allow them to add their comments. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to look at our email now because we should have received something, and I'm guessing that Mel and Dawn have already approved it. So here's the email that we got, and I'm going to click approve with comment. And hopefully, we didn't hit the quorum yet. Otherwise, I'll probably see a warning message saying that I'm late to the party. So it looks like we're good, and I'm going to say make it so, whatever. Not a huge Star Trek fan, but for some reason that came into my brain. And the forms are approved. Now, if I try to do this again from my smartphone, in fact, if I open up the form here again and say, oh, I changed my mind, let's reject it, then it's going to complain to me. It's going to say, whoa, you already approved it. Can't do that. And we'll close it. So Mel and Dawn, if you could actually approve it, and this form opens really well on the browser of your smartphone. So I can't easily demo that here, but the link looks really good in the smartphone. And the reason, and I'm going to show this form in a second. In fact, I'll do it right now. The policy for approval, that's what we just filled out. This is a library for creating approvals. We also have the library where the approvals are, and we're going to refresh this, and we'll see that we have some new approvals. In fact, this one, okay, so we have about a minute ago. That's me. Mel and Dawn, please approve the policy so we can see yours. But this form actually, I can open it from here as well, but it's not going to allow me to do that because I don't have an associated policy for it. The form is only intended to approve submitted policies. Please click on the link. So this is how we're preventing voter fraud. We need to have the link, we need to have a GUID, an ID for the policy, along with a GUID for the user in the link in order for them to open it. They can't just go to the library. And that's actually a feature, if you think about it. I'll review that again in a second, but let's just take a look at this form in the designer. So here again is the policy form. One of the key tricks that we're using here to create this multiple simultaneous same-time feedback is we have two forms. So we have a parent form and a child form. The child form then can be opened, because it's new, as many times by as many people as we want in parallel. There's no locking. What the child form does on open is it actually queries the it queries the parent form, which is the policy for approval form. And you can see these commands here. It's going to query, let's see, so it loads the template for the mobile view. That's CSS. That's one of the cool mobile features. It checks to see if it has a parameter for the policy ID, and if it does, it gets the policy, I believe. Mel, help me out here. Where is it querying the existing policy?
There, it's check if open from link.
Okay. And here...
Get input parameter.
Right, but then it gets the input parameter for the policy ID. That I see that, but where does it actually query the policy ID?
If it's not read only, so so we first check if we check for the read-only scenarios for the fraud identification and whatnot, and if it's not, then we go to form logic, please.
You centralize the logic here,
right,
as a best practice. Put most of the values in here. And which one? It's I'm guessing it's get data, right? That's the one. Okay, so this is where you're getting the policy.
Yeah.
You're setting the filter to equal the policy ID. This is a best practice. So she's got a data connection here that is setting the policy ID for that policy for approval library. And then by doing that, it's going to only return the item that matches. And then we query it, of course, right here. That's the policy for approval query. That pulls the existing policy into the vote form so we can display the information. Now, we could have displayed, and we actually are displaying this information in the form here. You can see that we have a calculate value here that is the title for the policy, and we have another calculate value for the text. So she is displaying the policy title and the value here. She isn't displaying the expiration or the other information, but you can see it got pulled in. Great. So this form opens, and then as we were seeing a moment ago on open, if it's one of these quickly approve and submit, then she's got this submit on open, and you can see the condition here. If the input is equal to true and it's not read-only, then it automatically will submit the form after they've opened it, showing them that they've voted. That way they can just click on the link. They do not have to hit another button. It's just a one-click operation. Mel, anything else to tell them about this form?
I think that's it.
I'm sure there's more. But
Did you mention about the extra feature to load the CSS style? That's why we have the kind of layered paper layout in the browser.
Yeah, so you can't see this in the desktop version, but on the mobile it looks really nice, and that's because Mel's got this resource for layered paper CSS and her style CSS that get loaded into the form. This is something that FormZero supports to make it look better on mobile, but if you've got InfoPath, it works in the Q rules as well. So either Q rules or FormZero. It doesn't work out of the box, but you don't need any code. You just need Q rules or FormZero, which is free, so you're good to go whichever way you want to go. And this has got kind of a nifty calculated value here at the top here, where it, based on how they've approved it, it says that they've either approved it or rejected it based on the this calculated value here. And you can see that Mel's using this tricky thing that says if the status is equal to approved, replace it with capital approved. If it equals rejected, replace it with capital rejected. And she's using a translate command to do that. This is kind of tricky. It's kind of above my pay grade, but you can see that how she's doing that there. And ask us questions if you have them. So to recap, in fact, let's just take a look at the form again. And Mel, can I open up? I can open up the policy for approval form to see the aggregation, right?
That's right.
Okay, so which one is it here? It is this one, the one I just submitted
15 minutes
an hour
ago.
ago. Is that right? 15 minutes ago, thank you. So let's open up this form and see if Don and Mel voted. I think this is the last step in the demo. Now these links could also work for external people. The one challenge we have, and I don't see the aggregation.
We need to look at the policy approval form, sorry.
Oh, okay. That's policy 4 again. There it is right here. So I just click on one of these items. The one I just submitted.
Yeah, the one about a minute ago, yeah. I think
So
that will be my form.
Okay, so the policy approval form is going to show that Mel has rejected the policy. Mel, you're no longer a resource here. I'm just kidding. You're an awesome resource. Can't lose you. But yeah, we do need to make sure we have continuous improvement for our users, for our customers, right? So anyway, it's showing this, and now you could put the same kind of aggregation logic in the main policy form. You don't have to do it in the policy one. This just gives people a quick sense of who else has voted. Okay, so that's the quick demo. Let's do a quick recap. So this is what we did. We submitted a policy for approval form, and this, you'll get this slide, by the way. And then people are sent an email based on the approvers list. Each person gets a separate email. That's key. And then we click on the link, either approving, rejecting, or approving with comment, rejecting with comment. There's some essential form validation that happens. So you saw, if I try to open it again, it said I've already approved it. We did not see the maximum number of approvals, nor the expired one. But Don should see that because he's actually the third one and the quorum was 2. And we also, if you're not listed as an approver, for example, we saw this, if I just open new, or if I open the policy ID without a GUID, or the GUID is different, then I'll get this. And I could probably, we didn't see this, but I can show you this if you're interested. So there's some validation here. And then finally, if the users click new from the library, this is the one we did see where we didn't have a policy ID, nor did we have a user ID. So it said, it's, go bro, you can't do it. So let's just quickly recap how we did this. We had a 2-form design. So the key with allowing multiple people to approve things is to have a child form. And the child form captures the approvals, right? So you're not actually editing the parent form. You're just editing the child form. So that's the key thing here. In addition, we're minimizing voter fraud. We're not exactly making it 0, but we're pretty close. And that's because we're using an ID. So somebody could get an email forwarded to them and they could vote before the recipient voted. So there's still that window of possible fraudulent behavior if somebody were to somehow get the email before the other person did. But once again, it's being emailed to the voter. So they'd have to forward it to somebody else, right? Or somebody else would have to have access to their email account for that to happen. So it's pretty low likelihood. And we are forcing people to use a separate GUID, so they can't use somebody else's. And we are also preventing multiple approvals, so people can't stuff the ballots, and so on. So that's a pretty cool technique. The separate emails, something that many of you may not have seen before. The one-click link, this uses an input parameter to say approve it on open, and therefore it submits it so they don't have to do anything. We did show this rule. I can show it again if people are interested, but it is a pretty clever technique for reducing the hassle. As people are driving their cars, you don't want them to have to add comments to an approval. They just want to click a button, right? Heads-up display, they click on their dashboard, they hopefully avoid the raccoon running across the road. And then we have this responsive design. So the design here is something that looks good on mobile, and we showed you those 2 CSSs that the form is loading. And if we forward the form to you, you would see that if you open the link that it looks really good on your mobile phone. And then finally, we showed that we were aggregating the results in the policy approval child form to show other people's status on the voting. So questions on that. Once again, we're using Forms Viewer for this demo. Forms Viewer is an ad here. We're calling it InfoPath 2016. The benefit of Forms Viewer is there's no change required to your existing forms. It works side by side with your existing form libraries, just as you saw. And you don't have to change your XSN, you don't have to change your XMLs. It is better in terms of performance. It's also got more features. We saw these 3 features today. Get input parameter, submit to SharePoint list, and those are the QRules features. These QRules features all work in QRules as well, but QRules no longer works in 365 because Microsoft deprecated Sandbox last August, and they finally took it out. You can still use this, of course, on-prem or using a filler form. It's not a problem, but Forms Viewer allows you to do it in the browser in 365, which is where we did our demo. It's faster to publish and prototype. I didn't really show this demo, but if we want to update the form, let's say, for example, that we want to change the color of the title for some stupid reason, we could just do this by saving it out. And I'll save it out here, and I'll show you how easy it is to publish it up here to, I'm just going to call this policy for approval. And actually, I'm going to make this 2 because I want to give you the one with the green text, not the red text. And what we'll do is we'll go up to our browser here where we're managing the templates. In fact, I think I have one open. So when you install Forms Viewer, you've got this app. Forms Viewer is an app, so it's SharePoint 2013-2016 app. And you get, you click on the app and you get this Manage Templates page. Now, in the near future, we're going to be adding an edit button so you can actually design the forms in the browser. But right now, we're still working on that feature. Right now, if I wanted to update this policy for approval, I just go in here and literally I can just drag and drop from my library here this policy approval 2 in here and upload. And it's like 2-3 seconds maybe, right? And are we done yet? Come on, we're done. And then we just go back to our form library and click new. And it's literally so much faster to do this than to publish. And so that's one of the key benefits of Forms Viewer is that fast publish and prototyping. It changes the way you develop your forms because there's a lot of times when you want to quickly change something and see how it's working in the browser. You can't do that with Preview because that's filler only. And if you're going to do it with InfoPath today, you have to publish it up there, which takes a lot of time. So that's a really cool feature. We have these designer features coming. They're not available yet, but we are adding new features to the form designer. We're giving you a designer so you don't have to use InfoPath Designer. Obviously, Forms Viewer replaces the filler, the browser filler, and the designer, Forms Designer, is going to replace InfoPath Designer. And we're extending it. We're saying, look, the number one problem today are with data sources. People don't name their fields correctly. We're going to give you a data source fixer, a purifier for your forms. Number 2 problem is rules are hard to debug, so we're going to give you a logic debugger. And finally, for QRules, people have a lot of trouble with the parameters, so we're going to give you a QRules validator. So those are the new features we're adding to the designer. And I think that's pretty much done. I'm done with my ad. I have one more quick demo to show you. And this is something we tried to do last week, and we had a bit of a demo fail. So I'm going to try it again this week here. And Mel, I think I have the links from you. And I need to log in using using Chrome because I think I might even have Chrome open. Let me just see, because I've got to, okay, so here is Chrome. I still have the form open from last night when I was testing it. Okay, so here is a form. Actually, this is an InfoPath form. We'll show you this in the InfoPath Designer. But one thing that's worth pointing out here is that we have this, and what do you call this layout again, Mel? When we have this nice layout that where the close form button kind of matches the right, no matter how small the window is. What do we call that again?
It floats.
Floats. Okay. Duh. Okay. Okay. So this is this calendar, and I hope it refreshes because I haven't refreshed this form since last night. So I'm just gonna. This is actually a form that we're doing for. Okay, so obviously it timed out, but let me try it again here. I'm just gonna paste it in here again. this is really what this is showing is that you can use a calendar here. I think there's two things. Mel, do you want to talk about what the benefit of this is again?
Yeah, it displays tasks from a separate SharePoint list, and we're trying to um, get away from the limitations in the out-of-the-box SharePoint calendars where you're limited to show only one field for the title in those day tiles. But in here, we're concatenating two separate fields to show as the title. And we're also able to modify the dates when we click on each tile or each task there and do some filtering as well.
Very cool. I'm just going to filter Baker Sue here, and we see this only. We can quickly do some filtering. So this is actually using an InfoPath form to do this, and we'll include that form with the package today if you fill out our quick survey with the interesting question at the end there. So that's the quick demo for that, which looks a lot better today than it did last week. And here's some intel on that demo. So now we're at the Q&A time, and we'll take your questions on anything you saw. Like I said, we're very happy to help you install this policy approval form on your site. There's no cost to it. We'll just help you get it going. You do have to have 2013 either online or on-prem. If you're on-prem, we need to either use QRules or use Forms Viewer for those features. And looks like we do not have any questions. People are busy this morning, no doubt. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. We'll get this video up on YouTube, and look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great day. Oh.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.